So I've been using the S22 Ultra for a few months as my main Android phone alongside the iPhone 13 Pro. So if you're trying to decide between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the S22 Ultra, here's everything you need to know. So here are 10 reasons why you should get the S22 Ultra over the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I'll give you some reasons to get the iPhone over the S22 Ultra. More about the iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the S22 Ultra right after this. If you're looking for a great productivity setup, then tune in later in this video to hear more about our sponsor MSI's latest MD272QP monitor and the Pro DP20Z mini PC. And now, back to the video. So the main reason I would say to get the S22 Ultra over the iPhone is for that optical zoom level. So the iPhone has 3x, the Samsung has both a 3x and a 10x optical zoom, and that 10x is just incredibly sharp. On top of that, the 20x and 30x digital zoom are also very good. This is because Samsung uses AI upscaling, and honestly, the zoom on this phone is unmatched. Here are a couple of images against the iPhone, some photos of the moon, and as you can tell, this phone just gives you a lot of flexibility. Plus, you can also take 108 megapixel photos with the Samsung compared to 48 on the iPhone, which, if you have a lot of light, you'll be able to get even more detail when cropping in. Now, the second reason to consider the S22 Ultra is that you can have two apps open side by side, which can be super useful versus just the one app on the iPhone. So let's say that you're driving, you have Google Maps on the top, and then your music controls on the bottom screen. So you can have stuff like that, super nice and useful to have. Then 3, Samsung also offers a much better viewing experience. You have a larger display at 6.8 inches compared to 6.7, and since it has a smaller camera cutout, less of your view when you're watching a video will be obstructed. Then number 4, the RAM management is way better on the S22 Ultra. First of all, it has 12 gigabytes of RAM compared to 6, and from my usage, I was able to go back to an app that I had opened a few days ago, and it was still fully loaded in the background. Whereas on the iPhone, a lot of the times it had to refresh the apps even when they were open just a few minutes ago. This is the case with YouTube especially. And I cannot believe that I'm saying this, but the S22 Ultra also has SIM support, which the iPhone does not, at least not in the US. So if you care about physical SIMs and traveling a lot, then getting the S22 Ultra will be a much more convenient option. Then number 6, the S22 Ultra has USB-C. We still have Lightning on the iPhone, and as you probably know, USB-C is incredibly useful. You have one cable for everything. You can connect to a USB-C dock, plug in an SD card, a mouse, a keyboard, turn it into a home computer, which you can actually do with DeX. So the possibilities are endless with USB-C. Then number 7, we have the S Pen on the S22 Ultra. Now, I gotta be honest, I rarely use it myself, but it is very useful for sketching or even signing documents. So this is great for business users. 8, the S22 Ultra is also more comfortable. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is simply too wide, so it is quite difficult to hold and use. The S22 Ultra is larger, but because of that curved frame, it is way more comfortable to use. Then the S22 Ultra also has reverse wireless charging, which can be a lifesaver when you're traveling and you simply want to top up your earbuds really quickly. The iPhone sadly doesn't support this. We also have more colors on the S22 Ultra. We have 7 instead of just 4 on the iPhone, 3 of which are exclusive for when you buy your S22 Ultra online. On top of that, we also have a ton of customization options. iOS has improved this in the past few years, but it just still doesn't compare with the Samsung. You can also install third-party launchers, have different animations. You can have app folders inside of the app jar, which you cannot have on iOS. You also have a ton of control options, and then stuff like the Edge panel to pin some apps there. You have apps such as GoodLog that can enable some truly advanced functionality. And it also works with the Galaxy Watch 5, which actually has more health sensors than the Apple Watch. You have a body composition sensor, blood pressure sensor, and then on top of that, the price actually drops much quicker on the Samsung side compared to Apple side. So those were the main reasons to consider the S22 Ultra over the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now here's the reasons to consider the 14 Pro Max over the S22 Ultra. More about the iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the S22 Ultra right after this. Now, most of us have been working from home lately, meaning that we need accessible monitors and PCs that are geared towards this kind of everyday intensive use. The MD272QP is easy on the eyes with its 1440p 75Hz panel and less blue light probe technology, while also offering plenty of usability. It has built-in speakers, you can tilt it vertically or VESA mount it, and there's also a large choice of ports. The inclusion of a 65-watt USB-C port, HDMI, and DisplayPort allows you to connect multiple devices, and with MSI's KVM switch, you can switch between them easily while needing only one keyboard and mouse. There's also the Pro DP20Z mini PC with Wi-Fi 6 and M.2 SSD and the option of an AMD Ryzen 7 5700G. So it packs a lot of power while having this compact design, making it a perfect partner for this monitor for a great all-around setup. Check them both by using the links below. And now, back to the video. The first one would be the overall camera quality. So on my 13 Pro, I've noticed that the image processing was significantly better than on my Samsung, with better dynamic range, and this was from all lenses. And the photos were also sharper than compared to the S22 Ultra, and noticeably. On top of that, the S22 Ultra has some pretty serious shutter lag compared to the iPhone, and the iPhone was also better in low light. So I do think that all of these would still apply with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. On top of that, everyone knows that the video quality is far superior on the iPhone. You have way better image processing, you have more detail when you zoom in. On top of that, you also have action mode now in 2.8K 60 frames per second compared to 1080p 60 on the Samsung. So if you're into outdoor sports, then getting the iPhone is a better option. Another reason to consider the iPhone is the outdoor brightness level, which can now go up to 2000 nits compared to 1750 on the Samsung. Now, this doesn't really seem like a big difference, but the thing is, when I was using the Samsung outdoors, it was very similar to my 13 Pro, which could only go up to 1000 nits, so I didn't really see that extra level of brightness myself. Then, number 4, we have that dynamic island. Now, this is sort of like a double-edged sword. If you like it, it's great. It seems super fun to use than Samsung's single hole punch, which is quite static. It doesn't really offer any animations. But at the same time, Samsung offers a much more immersive viewing experience, like I mentioned before. Then the battery life is also another reason to consider the iPhone over the S22 Ultra. My 13 Pro actually had a superior battery life to my S22 Ultra, and the 13 Pro Max has an even more superior battery, 6 hours more than the 13 Pro, and then the 14 Pro Max offers 1 extra hour on top of the 13 Pro Max. Another reason, although this is sort of like a personal choice, is Face ID over the built-in fingerprint reader. I do prefer Face ID as the moment I lift my phone off the table, it is already unlocked. And then we have all the iPhone exclusive features, such as AirDrop, which is super useful for transferring files to and from an iPhone, continuity, which allows you to continue replying to a message email from your Mac onto your iPhone, very useful. And then I also found the widgets to be way nicer designed on iOS compared to how they are on Android. Oh, and I also think that the always on display does look better on the iPhone 14 compared to the S22 Ultra, which has a more simple design. Now, something that I think you should remember is that the S23 Ultra will be launching in January or February, so not that long from now. Now, of course, this also means that once it launches, the price of the S22 Ultra will drop even more. So maybe it will be worth waiting until then just for the price of this to drop. But let me know, which one would you pick and why? Definitely check out our previous videos on the iPhone 14, the Apple Watch, and the AirPods Pro. I'm Daniel, it's been ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.